We begin today's wrestling news and rumors video with a bit of news surrounding Liv Morgan, who has without question become a true fan favorite on Friday Night SmackDown in recent months. As many of you are likely aware, over the past few weeks, fans have been demanding for WWE to have Liv Morgan, a very underrated and deserving superstar, get added into the 2021 Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. And while WWE were moving ahead with the storyline of Liv Morgan being that sympathetic underdog who's always given the short end of the stick, on this past week's episode of Friday Night SmackDown, partly due to Bayley's injury that will keep her off television for 9 months, Sonya Deville announced that Liv Morgan will be added into the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match later this month, and replace Carmella in the match, as Carmella will now be challenging for Bianca Belair's SmackDown Women's Championship next week on SmackDown to replace the injured Bayley. Now, this news was certainly well received by most fans, as Liv Morgan will finally get her chance to take her career in WWE to the next level, by possibly winning that Women's Money in the Bank briefcase and contract that would secure Liv Morgan a chance at a Women's Championship. Clearly, WWE are at least somewhat interested in pushing Liv Morgan, who has so much fan support behind her at the moment. And now the question really is, will WWE give fans what they want at Money in the Bank, and give Liv Morgan that career-defining moment to capture the Money in the Bank briefcase? Like we had touched upon in one of our previous videos, Liv Morgan is one of the 2 or 3 women's division stars being considered behind the scenes to win the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match this year. And apparently with each passing day, the consensus behind the scenes in WWE is that Liv Morgan will in fact be winning the match, which is definitely good news for her fans. Now, while even if Liv Morgan does win the Women's Money in the Bank contract this year, that doesn't necessarily mean that her cash-in would be booked to be successful, especially considering WWE are portraying Liv as an underdog, although it is certainly a step in the right direction, and will give Liv Morgan some much needed spotlight and attention in SmackDown's women's division. And hopefully WWE would book Liv Morgan to have a successful cash-in if she does win the briefcase. There is no doubt that Liv Morgan is a rising star in WWE, and if booked the right way, the company could basically have their next Becky Lynch in Liv Morgan, in terms of overall popularity and fan appeal. So it would certainly be in Vince McMahon's best interest to give that Money in the Bank win to Liv Morgan, to capitalize off the fan support and popularity, and take Liv Morgan to that next level in WWE. Let us know if you guys are happy that Liv Morgan has officially been added into the upcoming Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. And do you feel that Liv Morgan deserves to win the contract and briefcase this year, or do you think that Liv Morgan is not ready for that kind of a push and spotlight yet? Well guys, like we had mentioned in one of our previous videos, it unfortunately looks as though Cesaro's big push is in fact officially over in WWE following last night's edition of Friday Night SmackDown. Because as many of you are likely aware, Seth Rollins faced off against Cesaro on SmackDown in a Money in the Bank qualifying match, and after a back and forth bout, Seth Rollins picked up the big win over Cesaro, and Seth Rollins will now be heading to Money in the Bank 2021, where he has a chance to win that coveted briefcase and guarantee himself a chance at the Universal Championship. Now, there's no doubt that a lot of fans were hoping that Cesaro was going to be getting that big win over Seth Rollins and move on to Money in the Bank, with many feeling as though Cesaro has fully earned a respectable push in WWE after being so underutilized for countless years. And while it did seem like for a period of time that Cesaro was going to be getting a significant push, it appears like WWE have basically pulled the plug on Cesaro's main event push on Friday Night SmackDown. And it is not too surprising considering that has happened before with Cesaro, as Vince McMahon has attempted to push Cesaro a few times, but would then lose interest in Cesaro and feel he does not measure up at the top. And it looks like that has happened once again following last night's SmackDown episode. While Seth Rollins being added into the men's Money in the Bank ladder match does make that match a bit more high profile, and that the heel Seth is a great potential option to win that briefcase and contract this year, that does not take away from the fact that lots of fans are disappointed that Cesaro is not going to be getting that big opportunity. Although one of our sources has informed us of some rather reassuring news on Cesaro's status in WWE. According to one source, while Vince McMahon does not really have an interest anymore of pushing Cesaro into the main event title picture, and that his feud with Seth Rollins is about as big of a push as Cesaro will be getting in WWE, Vince still wants to showcase Cesaro, although instead in the mid-card Intercontinental Championship scene, with McMahon feeling like Cesaro is tailor-made for the mid-card in WWE and not the main event title picture, but that Cesaro still does have a lot to offer WWE in that intercontinental title scene. Now, as far as Seth Rollins is concerned, he now has a chance to win that Money in the Bank contract later this month, and as we had mentioned before, Seth Rollins is one of the favorites to win the Money in the Bank briefcase this year. But as WWE teased last night on SmackDown, the next big feud for Seth Rollins heading into SummerSlam 2021 will be the rated R superstar Edge, who will begin feuding with Rollins after Money in the Bank. Let us know your thoughts on Seth Rollins advancing to Money in the Bank 2021 after defeating Cesaro on SmackDown. And are you happy that Cesaro's main event push is essentially over and that the Swiss Superman will be returning to the mid-card scene? Or do you feel that Cesaro deserved a legitimate chance to become the Universal Champion and that a big push for Cesaro was long overdue? There had been a lot of question and concern heading into this week's edition of SmackDown as to how WWE would respond following Jimmy Uso's arrest earlier this week. But shockingly, not only was Jimmy Uso mentioned on the show last night, Jimmy Uso actually appeared in a big segment alongside his brother Jey Uso, who returned with the head of the table, Roman Reigns, with Roman bringing the family back together on SmackDown and reuniting with the Usos, much to the surprise of fans. However, if a shocking new behind-the-scenes rumor proves to be true, Roman Reigns and the Usos family reunion will not be lasting for long, and the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns has a shocking plan up his sleeves and will be betraying the Usos in the coming weeks on SmackDown to send a big message to Jimmy and Jey. As some intuitive fans picked up on last night's edition of SmackDown, when Roman hugged Jimmy and Jey Uso, the expression on Roman's face gave away the huge swerve coming, as it was clear that Roman Reigns is definitely not on the same page as the Usos, and will be turning on his cousins to likely teach them a lesson. With the storyline here being that Roman Reigns is utterly disappointed with the shame that Jimmy Uso has brought the family, and for Jey Uso walking out on him a couple of weeks ago, and that Roman Reigns is going to be betraying and destroying the Usos in the coming weeks on SmackDown to send them a message, especially after failing against Edge and the Mysterios to close out SmackDown last night. While the WWE do eventually plan for the Samoan Bloodline faction of the Usos and Roman Reigns to form, Vince McMahon feels Roman still needs to send Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso a message, especially after Jimmy's latest arrest, that not only do they need to follow Roman's direction in WWE, but act the part outside the ring as well, which includes Jey Uso letting his emotions get the better of him and walking out on Roman and Jimmy a few weeks ago on SmackDown, and for Jimmy Uso's bad behavior outside the ring, which brought a negative light on the family and WWE.